Thank you guys for being here. For those who aren't familiar with me, my name is James H. Williams. I'm a reporter and editor for the Orange County Register and the Southern California News Group. I cover the UCLA football team, but we aren't talking about the Bruins today. We're going to stay in the Pac-12, and we're going to be talking about crosstown rival USC. Obviously, they have a lot of buzz and a lot of things going on out that way, and I'm joined by my co-host for this space and special guest, Adam Grosbard, who's been covering the Trojans for a good couple of years, it seems like now. Adam, how are you doing? And welcome in.
I'm good, man. Technically, it's been 4 years, but 3 of those were Clay Helton years. So I think that makes it about 2 decades on the beat.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's been a long.
so
It's been a journey for you, right? I would imagine.
it's nice to have a season without the specter of a coaching search just hanging over me.
You.
It's the first one I've experienced at USC, and it's really great.
No, that's true. So you no longer have a coaching search to worry about, but you have a whole lot of what have come across as superstars and personalities and NIL deals and a quality coach, at least just from the hype and what we've seen from Lincoln Riley so far. We'll start there. What has been the night and day difference for you? I know it's still kind of early on and let alone the Lincoln Riley era, but the first year for Lincoln Riley. But what have the differences been just in terms of the overall state of the program with Helton there and then now with Riley?
Well, USC fans are just so much happier. They're just like such a happier bunch of people. It's really amazing, like what a difference that's made.
Yeah.
Like honestly, everything just feels very, very professional and thought through, and everyone really seems to be on the same page and following and different things that the coaching staff is doing to set an example and such. And it's it's been a pretty remarkable difference to this point in the season. Just the, this is a weird little thing, but like USC has covered all 3 games this season. That is not something that Clay Helton Trojans used to do. Like they would play down to the competition. It would be way closer than it was expected to be, even if USC got the win. And a lot of times they didn't. So this is just kind of a team that takes care of business in a pretty entertaining way to watch. So it's been a lot more interesting. I was hoping that would mean fewer 6:30, 7:30 kickoffs, but so far that has not been the case. But otherwise, it's been a pretty entertaining season to be following up close.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you got a chuckle out of me there because I don't know if because, USC has raised the stakes, but as someone who's covering UCLA and has a lot of that fan base on my timeline, 1 point win over South Alabama. Not only do you upset the high expectation fans or of the fans for UCLA in terms of them trying to put out a better product, but then you also have the gambling and betting side of things where they're upset that UCLA couldn't pull away with more than just 1 point to get that win there. So it's been pretty interesting from that dynamic. But no, I totally understand where you're coming from. But just
good teams win, great teams cover.
Yeah, exactly. What maybe I don't know, maybe it's a little inside baseball or not, but in terms of the access, the coverage, in not specific practice times, but just maybe just is there a difference in the way they're practicing? Did the practice schedule change with Lincoln Riley? Has the access or anything like that for you as a beat writer changed?
So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they're practicing in the mornings now instead of the afternoons.
Okay.
Wednesday, they're still doing afternoons. I think the expectation is by next year, it'll be all morning practices, but it just takes a little while to shift the class schedule from all afternoon practices. So they're in the process of doing that. So that's been a little different. I think Clay Helton's philosophy was if you practice later in the day, your body's going to be ready to play later in the day. It doesn't seem like Lincoln subscribes to that.
Yeah.
Rather practice and then have meetings later in the day and just kind of keep it, keep your body going at its best earliest time. In terms of access, we don't have as much viewing. Last year, we were able to watch all like an entire practice on Tuesdays
Right.
and then part of a practice on Wednesday. Now we're down to just pretty much watching stretching and individual drills. Sometimes we'll get to see the defense go against the scout team. So it makes it a little bit more tricky to kind of know what it is you're seeing when you're just guys go against air. I really had no feel for what this team was going to be prior to the season opener. And even after they beat Rice, I still was kind of uncertain. Like, I mean, you know, they did against Rice. Okay, let's see what happens. So it wasn't really until after week 2 that I was like, okay, this team is legit and they're doing things that winning teams do. And so that's one area where the Axis kind of made the preseason a little tricky, but you know, we're still able to interview most who we want, and you know, USC is still pretty good about getting us the people we want to talk to during the week.
So you mentioned the word uncertainty there, and anytime it seems like, at least on the national media, to some degree, you know, when you're Colin Cowherd, et cetera, it always comes down to uncertainty with the defense. Is it too early to have a real assessment of what the defense is for USC? Obviously, they're scoring enough points that maybe it doesn't matter so far in a lot of these early games, but down the road when you get competitive in Pac-12 play, it may come down to the defense. What are your thoughts just on the first kind of couple games here for that defense?
I mean, I've been writing about that extensively. It'll be in all of our papers. I guess it was in all of our papers this morning, actually. It's definitely remains a question mark because they give up so many yards. But the thing is, they've been really good in the things that winning defenses do. They're really highly ranked in sacks and tackles for loss. They're number 1 in the country when it comes to turnover margin, 10-0. They are number 1 in the country in red zone defense among defenses that have had at least 10 opportunities inside the 20. So they are doing the things to get themselves off the field and prevent points from being scored. And they've done a really good job of that. It's just like the sustainability of it when they're giving up, you know, 370 yards per game. And that's against Rice and Stanford, which aren't the craziest offenses. And then against Fresno State, which was without its quarterback for much of the second half. So it's kind of hard to say just how sustainable a lot of it is. I think we're going to learn a lot on Saturday against Oregon State, which is a perfect 14 for 14 in the red zone with 12 touchdowns in those opportunities. So I think we're going to learn a lot more this coming weekend about, you know, can this defense win when it's like really up against an elite unit?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you mentioned Fresno State and Jay Kaner there. I was expecting it to be, you know, maybe a little bit more competitive a game, or maybe that was just my hope, especially as someone who saw what Jay Kaner can do with Fresno State. They were in the Rose Bowl last year, and he put on a pretty gutsy performance and was able to get the best of UCLA that day. It was a pretty exciting game, so I was excited to see what he was going to do against USC. Unfortunately, he does get hurt and gets bumped out of that game. But yeah, we'll see. I think you're right about that. I think Oregon State will be a good measuring stick for where they're at, especially in the conference. There's obviously a lot of expectation for what fans think they can be, and college football pundits as well. But you know, they got to play those games. As we jump into the offense here a little bit, and we'll probably circle back to the defense here in a minute. But you know, everything starts with Caleb Williams when it comes to this offense. What has he been like so far in his first couple games of the season for USC?
I mean, he's been the definition of efficiency. He's really done exactly what you would want him to do. Like, he's the reason that they have been able to have this level of success, because any other quarterback who ran the offense, even someone as talented as last year's kind of got rising QB, Jackson Dart, really talented guy and doing very well in this, but he would have had to learn this offense entirely from new under Riley. Whereas Caleb comes in and he knows the offense, he knows exactly what it is that Lincoln wants. There's a level of trust, understanding, communication that they're able to really just hit the ground running, and he's able to help other members of the offense, like someone like Jordan Addison, who came in May, didn't get to do any spring practice, was only really doing player run workouts over the summer. But he was really able to hit the ground running with 5 touchdowns in the first 3 games because he, was able to work with Caleb during the offseason. So Caleb has really been leading that unit in a way that you want a second-year starter to do. He is, he just doesn't make any mistakes. Like even the other day against Fresno, he has 10 incompletions in the first half, which is as many as he had in the first 2 games combined. And he just doesn't, he never presses. He doesn't say I threw a couple incompletions, now I got to go throw 30, 40 yards to try to make up for it and show everyone who I am. He just stays within himself. I asked him about that this week, and he said it was very much like a just next play mentality, which is really cliche, but if you really live by it and abide by it and are able to, not let yourself overthink, you avoid the mistakes that really cost teams games by trying to do too much, and you end up throwing an interception and things like that. So he's just really played within himself. He's making incredible throws. He's making plays with his feet. He's been the complete package for them so far.
And if I'm not mistaken, from what I see, I was kind of keeping an eye on it just again because of what the hype could be for that Fresno State USC game. It looked like the defense for Fresno was kind of getting to not Hayner, but getting to Caleb Williams there a little bit. They were putting some pressure. It looked like they were at least getting some hits on him. How's that offensive line doing for Caleb? I know it sounds like it's an experienced offensive line, and they brought a lot of guys back, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, yeah, 5. They brought back 4 guys who started games for them last season. The 5th guy is Justin Dedich, who was the top overall center in his class, and is a 5th-year guy, and is really just handling the left guard position really well, or the right guard position really well. Excuse me. Jonah Monheim seems to have taken the next step forward. Then you got Bobby Haskins as kind of the 6th guy who's splitting time with Portland Ford at left tackle. It's a really veteran group. They're doing a really good job of run blocking. Last weekend was the first time in several years that USC had 2 running backs who gained over 100 yards rushing in a game, in Travis Dye and Austin Jones. So they've really grasped the concepts very quickly. And, for the most part, they've kept Caleb pretty clean. I think Fresno, one of the teams that put a little bit more pressure on him, but overall he's had a lot of time to throw in the pocket. Sometimes it's been him holding on too long, trying to wait for a receiver to get open, that pressure comes. So overall, the offensive line has been really a strength of this team.
And staying with the offense, and you mentioned Jordan Addison there, just the depth that they have at receiver, just the names that they have. I was talking to UCLA's playing Colorado this week, and I was talking to Brian Howell, the Boulder Daily Camera beat writer for Colorado, and I think one of the transfers is Brandon Rice is one of the receivers that was at Colorado and moved over to USC, if I'm not mistaken. So they got a bunch of different receivers there. Mario Williams is another one. Just tell me about all these receivers that Caleb has available to him and just how talented that receiver room is.
I mean, yeah, he's got a lot of guys he can throw the ball to. Jordan Addison obviously was the Biletnikoff winner last year. The dude is crazy fast. They measured during off-season workouts top flight speed of all the guys, and Addison came in at 23 miles per hour, where no one else was going past 22.
Wow.
So he's really just an insanely fast human being. He's really gripped the concepts very quickly of this offense, and Riley's using him really creatively. When he was at Pitt, he was more or less just a slot receiver. Here, he's being moved all over the field. He's being put in motion. He's doing all sorts of things that he didn't do before, and it's really paid off quickly. Mario Williams has just the trust factor with Caleb. They both came from Oklahoma. They're of no relation to each other despite the last name. But they just really know each other really well, and Mario has been a really good chain mover for them with his. He's really fast. Despite his size, he's really able to get some good separation when he goes up for a contested ball. He's just a really good athlete and really tough to bring down to the ground despite his size again. And he's, been a really good weapon for them. Brendan Rice is the more athletic of the three, I guess, really four transfers when you include Terrell Bynum from Washington. Mm-hmm. But Brendan's a really athletic dude. No surprise, he's the son of Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
And he's been really good, and it's just been really crowded to the point that you're seeing Gary Bryant, who was like number 2, number 3 receiver last year, redshirting this year and working with the scout team rather than burning a year of eligibility, just getting spot up duty and doing kickoff returns.
Do you think that's a smart move by Gary Bryant? Obviously, he's, again, a Corona Centennial alum there, but for him to make that decision, and is it just because of the depth and just the productivity of the guys that are ahead of him, or just getting familiar with maybe Lincoln Riley's offense a little bit better so he can come back the next year and maybe find a better spot in that offense, or has there been any indication what really kind of led to that decision for him?
I mean, he's just not getting playing time. Really recruited over him.
Yeah.
And recruited over all the receivers that USC had. Because, I mean, Taj Washington's gotten some good action, especially against Rice, but Kyle Ford's not seeing the field. Michael Jackson III's not seeing the field. Kyron Ware-Hudson's getting a little bit of action, but not a ton. Lincoln went and found his guys, which is funny because a lot of those guys are really high-end prospects out of high school, but I wouldn't, this is speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Gary wind up transferring to another program where he'll have a chance for some more opportunities next season.
Yeah, and a lot of that changed because of with the transfer portal window, I believe. Is that why you're getting him redshirting instead of maybe just leaving the program already?
I think he's decided to keep working out with the team instead. That kind of leaves open the possibility that he could stay.
Right.
But at the same time, I just the way it's going, and they've got CJ Williams from Mater Dei, who's a Lincoln prospect, and they're going to bring in Zachariah Branch next year, 5-star receiver, Makai Lemon, 4-star receiver. Like the opportunities aren't going to be there for Gary moving forward. Yeah. So I think, he's decided to stay working out with the team, which is not something you see a lot of guys do when they've decided like this year is just not my year. So respect to him for that. But I'm anything else, I'm trying to figure out, what he's doing would just be speculation.
No doubt about it. And I think just the way you laid it out there with just the guys that are going to be coming in next season as recruits, it's like, geez, it's hard to just compete with that. But obviously, these guys are football players and they love to compete and they love the competition. Another guy that kind of caught my eye reading some of your stories and stuff over the last couple of weeks is Solomon Byrd, who, from what I've kind of picked up, has just kind of popped up out of nowhere and took that starting spot, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so, he didn't take it. Mm-hmm. The starting spot was vacated when Romello Height got hurt.
Okay.
And Romello Height, we learned today, is going to be out for the season. But that being said, like, Byrd got his opportunities, and he's really just crushed it. Like, Height got hurt at the beginning of the Stanford game, and Byrd had 2 sacks and a pass breakup at the line of scrimmage in that game. Then he comes back and has the strip sack at the beginning of the second half against Fresno State, which was a huge play in terms of like really putting USC on the path to an easy victory. He's been really impressive, and they've been really excited about like what he represents, because he's a guy who came in from Wyoming, was a starter at Wyoming for a couple of years, 5th-year guy, and he was third on the depth chart after fall camp. It'd be really, really discouraging to a lot of people for, any number of reasons. But he kept working at it. And because he did, he kept his head down and kept doing what was asked of him. And when the opportunity came, he crushed it. And now, like, that's really his starting job. It's not Corey Foreman's, it's Solomon Bird's. And they see him as a really good example for the rest of the team in terms of, you put in your work and you're going to get rewarded for it. And that's what's happened with him.
Yeah, and Corey Foreman was a guy who, wasn't he the number one recruit coming out of Corona Centennial, 2 years ago?
They put billboards up when he signed with USC.
That's right.
It was such a big deal in the Helton era because the year before they had really just had an awful recruiting class. So to get him, they literally put billboards up with his face, promoting him as like the next coming, and they were trying to, sell season tickets off of his committal.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it's been kind of something to see. He's still trying to break through and not getting a ton, he's getting, positive reinforcement, but not ringing endorsements from the coaches at this point.
Gotcha. And you mentioned season tickets, which makes me think of crowd attendance. And obviously that's been on my mind just because of everything going on at UCLA in the Rose Bowl. But
what attendance?
Yeah, you said it, not me. But speaking of attendance, I mean, I was there with you for the UCLA USC game at the Coliseum last year, and obviously a down year for USC. So that crowd was not what it normally may have been for a USC UCLA game back in the day. But what have the crowds been looking like so far at the Coliseum this season?
I mean, it's better. It's better. You're still not having people stay for the end of the game because USC is winning by so much. But people are showing up. I think they had 67,000 tickets sold for the last game, which was an increase of 7,000 from the season opener. So it's improving. It's getting better. Now, the weird thing for this, I don't know when would it make sense to have like the breakthrough season, like sellout crowd where it's just raucous the whole time, because there's no Oregon coming to the Coliseum this year. There's no UCLA coming to the Coliseum this year. There's no Utah coming to the Coliseum this year. There's no Washington. There's no Oregon State.
Oh, wow.
Like really all the best Pac-12 teams, the big one, and it's the last game of the season, is Notre Dame.
Okay. And the way.
So that'll be a sellout crowd. Like it just always is between the two fan bases. It's going to be. But is there like a breakthrough moment before that because of how well this team is playing, how it's positioned? I could see if USC is undefeated and beats Utah on the road, I could see the first game back from that being a sellout crowd.
Yeah.
Even though that, but the issue is that's three. Like you have Utah, then you have a bye week, then you play Arizona, and then I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's Utah bye week, Arizona on the road, and then I think it's like Colorado,
and then
or something like that.
You have Cal at
Cal
Coliseum for the homecoming, and then you have the mighty Buffaloes of Colorado coming in the following week for an FS1 game. Isn't that just a thriller, a barn burner on a Friday on a Friday night, Adam?
On Friday night too. So that's the thing, right? It's like I really don't know when is the game that makes the most sense where they're gonna have that like breakthrough, raucous throwback crowd. Because like until Notre Dame, that would be kind of like anticlimactic, right? For that to be the last game of the season when they finally have that. Now I could see USC fans packing the Rose Bowl and embarrassing Martin Jarmond and Chip Kelly in a different sort of way.
Yeah, a different sort of way, yes. Because I was going to say maybe some of the embarrassment's already there, and there's not much more embarrassment you can do, but maybe in a different time, in a different type of way, with just having some SoCal fans from a different school come and fill up the Rose Bowl. I'm sure that wouldn't go over too well.
I mean, let's be real. That's what UCLA is going to be playing 12 road games a year once they join the Big Ten.
Oh, no doubt about it.
But either way, so to go back to it, I just don't know when the breakthrough is. So like maybe I haven't looked this up yet, but like maybe when the first playoff rankings come out, and if USC's undefeated and is really high in those rankings, then maybe you get something there. But it'll be interesting to see like when is the breakthrough moment for this fan base and Lincoln Riley.
I have a feeling it will come a lot closer for the Trojans than it will for the Bruins at this point, because I'm still trying to map that out, and I don't think it's anywhere in this schedule this year. But with that being said, you talked about the playoff rankings and whatnot, and obviously USC is doing pretty well for themselves in the AP poll. What are your thoughts on the playoff potential there for the Trojans?
If they beat Oregon State, then I think that they are capable of winning pretty much every game on this. Like they're capable of winning every game on the schedule as is, right? Like that's what we've seen. Utah is good, but maybe not as good as they were last year. Notre Dame has definitely taken a step back, but they might be better by the end of November. UCLA just had its issues last weekend. Arizona State's a mess. Arizona is on the rise. No Oregon, no Washington. Like they really do have a potential to go undefeated here.
Yeah.
It's like insane to think. Oregon State is a really good potential trap game for them. They don't play well in Corvallis historically.
Mm-hmm.
And the Oregon State offense is just insane. But it does feel like there's like a real chance of this being a playoff team, which was not something I expected to be saying at the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, I'm an AP voter, and I had USC as number 22, I think, in my initial poll. And they ended up being 14 in the preseason poll, but I just felt like they hadn't, I had so many questions about the defense, and slowly but surely those questions have been more or less answered, but we'll just have to see what exactly happens, with this game coming up on Saturday.
No doubt about it. And just looking at the Pac-12 as a whole, it seems like it's just a lot more competitive, and maybe that has to do with a lot of the different transfers. I think Chip Kelly mentioned recently when I was out at a practice that I think 10 of the 12 teams have transfer quarterbacks starting for them. Obviously, Caleb Williams being one of them. We're hearing a lot about Michael Penix Jr. and how he's a dark horse now for the Heisman. What are your thoughts on just the state of the Pac-12 and what you've seen from teams outside of USC so far, if you've had the time to take your eyes off the Trojans for a second?
I mean, as an AP voter, I kind of have to have football on all Saturday.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah, there's really no break on Saturdays, but I mean, it's a much better conference than expected. I only had Oregon, Utah, and USC in my preseason poll.
Yeah.
I guess I had UCLA in my preseason poll too, but they dropped out. But to have this week I had 5 Pac-12 teams in my poll. I added Washington, I added Oregon State. Washington State is a whole heck of a lot better than they were last year. Arizona is clearly a team on the rise. UCLA is, still good. Like they're not a bad team, despite, a lot of the narratives going on around them right now. So it's a much deeper conference than I expected. I think the conference would look much, much, much better if Utah had beaten Florida.
Yep.
and Oregon had just managed to do anything against Georgia.
Yeah.
So
They showed up for the game.
Right. So like a one-loss Pac-12 team is not a playoff team.
Yeah.
But if USC goes undefeated and wins the Pac-12 title game, like that's a playoff team. So it'll be really interesting to see, if these teams can keep it up. I think Washington looks real to me.
That's what everyone's saying. That's been the kind of the talk of the Pac-12 this week, for sure.
Like they look real to me. Washington State looks real to me. That'll be a good Coliseum game.
Yeah.
And it's a much better conference than it was a year ago. That's for sure.
There's been some people who've been kind of trying to make the case or say that there's no reason why a team like Washington State shouldn't be ranked in the top 25. I haven't seen where they fell in terms of teams that others that have received votes. I actually didn't get a chance to look at that this week, but I would imagine they would have to be pretty high for people to make that case. But I mean, that would only mean nothing but good things for the Pac-12 to have that many teams, and I'm keeping an eye on it because I have with UCLA, they have you're looking at this Colorado game and you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe Washington will be a little competitive, and then you have that Utah and Oregon stretch, but now Washington is starting to look like a lot better than the expectations I had for them, at least early on with the eye test. So things will be getting pretty competitive in this upcoming stretch here, this next month or so for UCLA. But as we kind of wrap things up, I'm just kind of curious. Again, as I mentioned, we're hearing Heisman talk about Michael Penix Jr. As the new little darling there for the Heisman race. What do you think the potential is for Caleb Williams to be in that Heisman race, especially when there's that West Coast bias or whatever you want to call it, where maybe some of these voters aren't staying up late to watch Caleb Williams and the Trojans if they're playing those evening games?
Yeah. So the West Coast bias is real, but I don't think it really applies to a blue blood.
Uh-huh.
Like the West Coast bias, that might hurt Michael Penix. It definitely hurt Christian McCaffrey. But if you've got a quarterback on an undefeated USC team who's putting up astronomical numbers, that's going to get consideration. So I wouldn't put too much stock into the West Coast bias there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Caleb's got a chance if he keeps playing clean ball like he has been. He's got the weapons around him to do it. They're moving the ball, putting up numbers the way he should. He's not making mistakes. He's got a chance. I mean, shoot. I don't think he'll be a finalist, but I think there will be an argument to be made if he continues to play the way he is for Jordan Addison.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a really talented receiver. He's putting up crazy numbers. Not crazy yardage numbers, but he's doing a lot of really good stuff out there. So I'd be curious to see if he gets any attention too. But no, I think it's very possible. But we're only a quarter of the way through the season at this point, so we'll have to see. If they keep playing at this pace.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And for me, as someone who has a Blitnikoff vote, I'm definitely keeping an eye on Addison. He had my vote last year. As well when he was at Pitt. So definitely keeping an eye on him. And I think he'll make a good case for that spot again this year. Well, as we wrap things up here, Adam, just what is the injury report looking like coming into this Oregon State game? How are they holding up in terms of health out there in LA?
They've been pretty clean overall. Cortland Ford and Bobby Haskins are both probably going to play at left tackle. Raleek Brown is getting healthier and healthier. He still played the last couple of weeks a little bit, but just not as much as overall as he had in the first game. I'd expect him to be cleared to go. That really the only new addition to the injury report is Romello Height missing, but Solomon Bird has been filling those shoes pretty nicely so far.
Awesome. Any final comments or thoughts on the Trojans before we head out? Anything on Alex Grinch?
I mean, we kind of covered the defense. Grinch is definitely not satisfied with the way they've been playing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Really, my final words are for anyone listening: go turn on Fox right now and watch Aaron Judge hit 61.
You had to get that in there. Did he? How many at bats has he had so far? Or has the game even started?
He had one. The coward walked him on 4 pitches. Didn't even throw it close to the strike zone.
Did you say the coward? All right, Adam. I'll let you go. Enjoy that game, and I hope you have a safe trip as you head out to Oregon here this week.
Yeah, enjoy the mighty Buffaloes and the mighty Bruins.
Oh, I'm excited for the slugfest. That will be the Carl Jarrell Bowl. How exciting! Thank you so much, Adam. You have a good one. It was nice talking to you.
All right, you too, James. Peace.
Bye-bye. And thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with Adam. We're trying to do different conversations with the SoCal News Group reporters, sports reporters, Adam being one of them. We have a few others that have been popping in and out of the space. And as I mentioned, myself as well, who covers UCLA football. So, again, I hope you guys go out and check our work and the things that we're doing in terms of coverage in Southern California at dailynews.com and ocregister.com. Thank you guys again for your support, and we'll catch you in the next one.